This is a stand-up yesterday when the Prime Minister was asked about his comments around, this is the Prime Minister in his weekend mode. He's got a beard and he wears hats and stuff. He looks a bit different, I know. About his comments re Gaza, and that he labelled it a famine, and broken clock, all that kind of stuff. So this is at a stand-up with whoever this homeless man is, talking about Gaza.
Overnight, we've seen that the UN-backed IPC has officially declared that Gaza is in a famine. Is it acceptable to you that the situation, that the condition is worsening in Gaza?
Yeah, look, it's incredibly concerning. As I said,
Just so in case people didn't hear it, is it concerning to you that the condition is worsening in Gaza? That was the basic question.
Today, incredibly worrying. What we don't want to see is what we have seen, which is Israel moving into Gaza City. 90 to 94% of Gaza is absolutely destroyed. The forcible displacement of people, the annexation essentially
is a war crime. You didn't quite get that full thing out, but you did mention it.
Gaza is not something we support at all. Also equally worrying is what we're seeing around the settlement.
Oh, Mr. Luxon.
Prime Minister, overnight we've seen that the UN-backed
around the settlements that are being accelerated into the West Bank, which is really extinguishing and undermining the two-state solution, which has been, something that our government has supported right from 1947. So we're very concerned about what's happening in the Middle East. Obviously, what we want to see, as I've been calling for a long period of time, is the immediate release of hostages. We want Israel to be able to offer unhindered, unfettered access to humanitarian agencies to be able to get in there and provide the food that they need to, particularly the UN and other neutral NGOs that can do that job. And obviously we need to get to a ceasefire solution very quickly and back to the two-state solution.
Chewie, you're grown there. Do you want to expand on that a bit? He did say release the hostages.
We're very clear. Release the hostages. The hostages have been offered back a half dozen times.
Agreed.
And Israel just keeps on moving the goalposts. And if we're going to talk about hostages, can we talk about all of the hostages? How about all the Palestinians that have been arrested, put through the 100% conviction rate, military courts, put in jail? The report out just this week from teenage detainees that sexual abuse is rampant in those facilities from the guards. So, if you want to both sides it, man, fucking both sides it. Go in. But this clinging to the two-state solution, what do you mean by two-state? Do you we've had the two-state solution, but Israel's been able to nibble away at the other state for decades and just do raids and bombs and assassinations. He's almost there. It's not bad unless you know a bit more than nothing.
All right, we'll keep going, see if we can still hear him.
The recent developments in that official declaration, does that make you want to speed up your decision on declaring a...
So this is the questions around, what's happening there? This is the question around, they say they're going to wait a month or so to declare whether Gaza is a territory or not. And so the question that is being asked is, with all this going on, you evoke the words, I nearly said famine. You evoke the word famine. Are you now going to speed up the process?
No, as I said, we're working through our own process, and we'll have more to talk about that with respect to September, and each country is coming to its own view. But what we're doing is calling out that those are actions where military action into Gaza City, extremist settlements now into the West Bank, with an explicit aim of removing that two-state solution, are very worrying, very concerning for all of us.
Does this declaration, though, surely it shifts the dial a little bit? Surely you can push forward.
Well, as I said, I think we've plumbed new depths. I mean, when you're seeing famine and validated and verified examples of famine that are taking place in Gaza, that is just something that none of us want to see, and that's why as a global community there's immense frustration, because we've been calling for unfettered humanitarian access now for 6 to 9 months, and Israel has a responsibility to make sure that it can get aid and humanitarian assistance into Gaza. And when you're seeing cases of famine and you're seeing so much dislocation and And when you've got 94% of hospitals destroyed or out of action, when you've got 90% of Gaza really in rubble, and you're now saying you're moving into Gaza City where people are, where do they go? And as a result, and there's no free flow of aid and assistance coming in. That's why the global community is incredibly frustrated about it.
Benjamin Netanyahu's had some strong words for yourself and for Anthony Albanese. I guess any response to him?
Well, look, they're my views, as I said before when I made those remarks. But my point of view is that it's a pretty simple thing. The global community is getting increasingly frustrated because we've all been unified in calling for the immediate release of hostages from Hamas, who are a terrorist organisation. And I'm the first Prime Minister of New Zealand to deem that whole organisation a terrorist organisation, which is what it is. Secondly, we've been calling for humanitarian assistance and Israel's obligations under international law to make sure it protects civilians and it provides assistance. And then we need to get the parties into a ceasefire. And and that's what the world is getting frustrated about. And now we see famine, which is unacceptable.
There you go. Thank you to Stuff for that footage. Chewie, have a crack.
So he has correctly identified all the issues that are happening in Gaza. He's said that Israel have massively overstepped. He's pointed out that there is an ongoing man-made famine, that there's war crimes going on. He's expressing frustration. That they're all true things. But then he's balancing that out with absolutely no sense of urgency. Oh, we're just going to go through the process and it might take a month. You have identified all of the things. You know that children are being starved to death. You know that civilians are being murdered at an unprecedented rate. But you are happy to roll with a process that might take a month and might generate a slightly more grumpy letter that would get delivered to Israel, and Israel would go, cool thoughts, New Zealand, fuck off. This is what frustrates people. Like, we've had 2 years of this. There have been people right from the get-go that identified what was starting and identified the point that we're at now, and more concerningly, have correctly identified what is going to happen from here. We've had 2 years of the international community wringing its hands and trying to drag our leadership to a point where something happens. And we're still not there yet. Mm. Where's the action? Where is the aid? Like, that's the whole thing. You're still flubbing around talking points from over a year ago. Release the hostages. I condemn what Hamas did. They're a terrorist organisation. I'm the first Prime Minister to say so for some reason is important. Like, I don't give a shit about any of that. Where is something more than words, Luxon? By saying that you see the problem and then going, but I'm not going to stress about it. I'm not going to hurry up. I'm not going to do something brave. I'm just going to carry on with our processes. Fuck's sake.
Story goes on a little bit because there has been a bit of feedback from Benjamin Netanyahu, like we heard in a statement reported by the BBC. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, Israel does not have a policy of starvation. Israel has a policy of preventing starvation. I think he must live in the upside down. I mean, that could be the only way that makes any sense at all. Luxon said New Zealand did not want Israel to move into Gaza City and continuing its settlement of the West Bank, which he said undermined the possibility of a two-state solution. The annexation of Gaza is not something we support at all. What we are seeing around the settlements being accelerated into the West Bank, which is extinguishing the possibility of a two-state solution. Luxon said he wanted to see Hamas release hostages, Israel to offer humanitarian agency, unfettered access to Gaza, to be able to get in there and provide food they need to. Luxon said 90 to 94% of Gaza is destroyed. Yeah, it's funny, because when you read it, it comes across as better, because obviously you don't get all the flubbing and the sort of, yeah, because he's saying, so what that says is he's kind of saying mostly the right things, But what you hear when he says it is how he's saying it. It doesn't sound quite as confident as when you read it, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I do want to acknowledge that there has been a pretty major shift in the way that he is talking about this, but it's not backed up by anything else. It's there's like he goes as far as saying like every country has its own process. There is no talk of him talking to our other traditional allies that are maybe a little bit further down the road than us, like Australia, like Canada, like building a coalition of people that can do something more for the people of Gaza. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, the only time I want to hear that New Zealand is going it alone is when New Zealand is doing it first. Not that we're pinballing around trying to work out what we're doing. We're going to put together a fucking steering committee to decide whether dead kids is good or not. It's weird. Like, there was a report that's come out, I think, today or yesterday. The Israeli military reckons that of all the casualties in Gaza, 83% of them are civilians.
Yeah.
The Israeli military has said that.
So if there's 100,000, that's 83,000 people. If there's,
Yeah.
and scale back from there. And of that, obviously, I saw again that image going around. I think I might have been watching some Kyle Kalinske over the weekend. The image going around, and it's on various feeds again today. That look at them putting the sick child on the front page who's got comorbidities. They don't use that word because they're not smart enough to use that word until you point out that the reason the kid's got the comorbidity is because of the nutritional deficit his mother had. And then I think the point that Kyle made over the weekend was, and of course, all the youngest, most vulnerable, and sick are also going to be the ones that die first when there's a famine. So it's like, even if the kid does have other issues, that then also is going to be the first kid to die, because those other issues just mean they die quicker when there's a famine. And then it's the children, and then it's the adults, because that's how starvation tends to work. The most vulnerable and the smallest, the ones with the least amount of, I guess in New Zealand we'd say fat or ways for their bodies to survive, are the ones that die first. So yes, we all know that one photo of that one kid has an issue, but the issue is caused by malnutrition of his mother, and he's still starving, and that's the reason that they're dying quickly. They're not dying quickly because of the other issue. They're dying quickly because of the starvation.
People that are
anything else?
stunned by that figure that I mentioned there. There we go. Israeli military's own data indicates civilian death rate 83%. Figures from the classified IDF database listed 8,909 named fighters as dead or probably dead in May, as the overall death toll reached 53,000.
Yeah. And a hell of a lot bigger in real life.
Yeah.
It's way bigger than 53,000. You don't flatten a city of 2 million people and only lose 50,000 people.
We are never going to know. And this is part of the thing with the Israelis pushing into Gaza City specifically, is they are taking control of a crime scene. They are just going to bulldoze buildings out of the way. They're going to cover up mass graves and atrocities, and they're not going to let UN inspectors in or war crimes investigators in. They're certainly not going to have that. So we are never going to know how many people the Israelis have killed to get a relatively small amount of Hamas fighters, kill a bunch of their own hostages, and refuse to get them back, even though that was the red line issue right at the start. We'll stop this if Hamas gives us the hostages. Okay, we'll give you the hostages back if you get the fuck back over your side of the fence. Yeah, well, we're not going to do that. Not going to do that.
We're going to wrap this up because there's one more 90 seconds to play, because this is now Christopher Luxon on Breakfast responding to what Benjamin Netanyahu said.
I know you called out Benjamin Netanyahu in the last week or so. He reacted a few days ago saying it was shameful the way Western leaders in Britain, France, Canada and New Zealand have buckled under the pressure of pro-Palestinian protesters. What did you make of those comments?
Well, look, I mean, he's entitled to his views. I was entitled to mine. What I'd say is he and I are very aligned on one thing, which is that Hamas and what they did on October the 7th, killing 1,200 innocent civilians, you know, kidnapping 251 hostages, is utterly unacceptable. I'd like to hear a lot more condemnation of that from other political leaders across New Zealand. You know, I'm the Prime Minister that's made Hamas a full terrorist organisation because
You can see how he's in a position now where he's going, don't panic, conservative evangelicals. I'm still, team Israel on some level. We just can't, this has just got to a point where we just can't, and I gotta try and thread this needle because we just can't, what's happening bad, and I don't quite know how to address it.
they are, and see no future role for them playing anything to do with a future Palestinian government or state. But, what we're also saying as an international community is, look, Israel's gone too far. We've been calling consistently as a group of countries for a long period of time to say, you've got to provide unfettered, unhindered humanitarian assistance. This weekend, we're seeing, 500,000 people dealing with the effects of famine. I think 140,000 kids that are actually in starvation. And we've got a country now that's 90% sort of rubble. And we've seen military action into Gaza City. We're seeing extremist activity with settlements on the West Bank, and all of that ultimately ends up extinguishing or making the two-state solution much harder to achieve. So there's immense frustration and exasperation from the global community because the person who can do the most to stop all of that is obviously Netanyahu and the Israeli government. But I fully acknowledge Hamas actually has to release hostages. It has no future role to play, and they are terrorists.
Please, sir, Chewie, off you go.
Oh, look, Netanyahu's entitled to his views and I'm entitled to mine, said the genius debater. But then I'm immediately going to go, yeah, but me and Netanyahu, we've got something in common. We don't like Hamas. Fuck's sake, man. You're the most uninspiring person, let alone Prime Minister, that I've ever seen. Like, just pick a position. Be brave. Like, you could just ignore that, as you should. No one's asking you to tell us whether Hamas is good or bad. What everybody is focused on is the wholesale industrialized murder of civilians, and specifically the starvation of a population. Tens of thousands of children. That's someone that purports to be a Christian could put right at the fucking top of the thing. We don't think this is acceptable. We think that Israel knows exactly what it's doing, and we here in New Zealand don't like it. Netanyahu can go and kick rocks. And we're talking to our other allies who also don't think it's fair, and we're coming up with a plan. We've got some shiny new aircraft for our Air Force. We're going to force the issue on aid. I don't care how realistic that is. I want it to happen. Why is no government trying to run the blockade?
I wonder as well, you were talking about him not being inspiring, and it's probably time to put his big boy pants on. That's what I hear. Which is strange because he only kind of hires people.
I've got big people doing big jobs and big portfolios.
So maybe he needs to take a bit of advice from himself and become a big boy. Because,
do a big diplomacy. I know the UN has its fucking hands tied because of the veto. But I want us to be doing something more. And Luxon and Winston Peters still think this is some sort of diplomatic thing where you can just send a formal letter of don't do that anymore. It's starting to look a bit crazy and it'll stop. Israel has no intentions of stopping. Mark my words, once they clear out Gaza City, it'll be on to Rafah. It'll be the next settlement and the next settlement. We've seen the roadmap. We've
Yep.
seen them try to evacuate people from one end to the other and then just bomb them backwards and forwards. They're just going to keep doing that.